group of 20 has welcomed President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's proposal to combat global poverty. This Wednesday marks the 49th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Cuba and the Caribbean community. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said Wednesday that he was returning to Addis Ababa from the battlefront after the National Defense Force claimed major advances in the fight against Tigrayan rebels. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. The group of 20 has welcomed President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's proposal to combat global poverty. During the first G20 Sherpas meeting hosted by Indonesia, Mexican Undersecretary of Foreign Affairs Carmen Moreno Toscano presented the World Plan for Wellbeing submitted by the Mexican president in November to the United Nations Security Council to representatives of the group of the most advanced economies of the world. The Mexican Foreign Ministry reported that the proposal was well received, particularly by representatives of developing nations who are aware of the effects that the health crisis caused by COVID-19 has had on the increase in extreme poverty. The proposal seeks to support more than 750 million people living on less than $2 a day through voluntary contributions from the world's richest countries.
I take this opportunity to inform the President that yesterday we presented his global plan at the G20 meeting in Jakarta, and it was well received. The G20 is required to contribute to it.
Following the resumption of the Remain in Mexico program by the United States, the Mexican government has placed conditions on Washington and determined that the country will not accept the return of vulnerable asylum seekers without an appointment to attend a hearing in the United States. In addition, Mexican authorities informed that they will request the health and vaccination status against COVID-19 if the citizens return to Mexican territory. The government of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador made it clear that they accepted the resumption of the program created by former President Donald Trump on humanitarian grounds.
It turns out that the MPP does not work, and it is only for Central Americans, not for Mexicans. Even though it was only an alert, it was not a statement. They said that they were going to see if they would activate the MPP, not that it was confirmed. So people let themselves be fooled by other people. The reality is that they get fooled and look at the consequences.
Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez relaunched a More Culture program on Tuesday, which will benefit more than 400,000 young people across the country. The program promotes access to cultural goods, services and practices. President Fernandez stressed that the initiative seeks to give the beneficiaries of state scholarships the possibility of attending activities of an artistic and cultural nature, and to give young creators the opportunity to develop their skills with opportunities for professional growth. The president also pointed out that the program seeks to reactivate the cultural sector's industries with the creation of thousands of jobs.
A great poet who wrote wonderful songs. Her name was Maria Elena Walsh. She wrote a wonderful poem, a wonderful song. So many times they killed me, so many times I rose again. That is our history. As a people, we've always fallen many times, but we always get up. We always get up, and although there are many who plant hatreds among us, saying this people is good for nothing, we are an extraordinary people who have recovered again and again in the face of the most terrible pains.
And we'll be right back after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. This Wednesday marks the 49th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Cuba and the Caribbean community. Relations between CARICOM member states Barbados, Jamaica, Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago and Cuba were established on December 8, 1972. The historic move opened the path to a friendly and fruitful relationship between Cuba and fellow Caribbean nations that has evolved over the years into a mutually beneficial partnership based on solidarity. In a statement honouring the date, the chairman of the Caribbean Community and Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, highlighted the excellent spirit of cooperation that has been of great assistance both bilaterally and regionally, particularly with regard to human capacity building and the provision of healthcare. Honouring the 49th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Cuba and CARICOM, General Secretary of the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration and President of the Cuban-Barbadian Friendship Association, David Denny, thanked Cuba for its support in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic.
First, let me say to the government and people of Cuba, thanks for saving many lives in our region, because many of our countries are suffering from this COVID-19 situation, and Cuba have extended its arms to assist us medically and to help to save many of the lives in our region.
And the president of the Cuban-Barbadian Friendship Association also condemned the United States' attacks on the Cuban government and people.
The Cuban-Barbadian Friendship Association also want to object to the brutal attacks against the government and people of Cuba by right-wing and reactionary forces in the United States of America and also the United States of America government.
Jamaica's Attorney General confirmed that work has started to make the Caribbean island a republic, with an announcement expected by the end of the second quarter of 2022. Attorney General Marlene Malahoo Fort explained that a document is currently being prepared for the Prime Minister on the matter, who's already given instructions for the Constitution to be amended. Barbados recently became the world's newest republic by removing Britain's Queen Elizabeth II as head of state and inaugurating a president on the 55th anniversary of its independence. Analysts noted the move could lead other former British colonies to take the same step. While former Jamaican prime ministers have made commitments to start the process for the past 4 decades, nothing substantial has happened. However, following Barbados's move, calls became louder by Jamaicans, including former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson, who wrote an open letter to Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the leader of the opposition, calling on them to ensure that Jamaica is a republic by the time the country observes 60 years of independence in 2022. In Bolivia, the threat of the Omicron variant of the novel coronavirus has led to increased demand for booster shots of the vaccine. Our correspondent, Freddy Morales, has the story.
Thousands demanded the third or booster dose of the vaccine against the novel coronavirus in view of the warnings about the threat of the Omicron variant that is beginning to worry a large part of the planet. This stock we had the vaccine had been administered quickly in 1 week. 10,000 vaccines have been administered. We did not expect this speed in the vaccination process, so the establishments have been short of doses, not because there was no vaccine, but because they had run out. In this sense, we have received 61,000 doses more. For the moment, Bolivia has dismissed the possibility of closing its borders, as most of its neighbors have done, but a massive vaccination campaign is promoted as a preventive measure. People who are in intensive care did not get vaccinated, and it is unfortunate because their families are suffering. They regret not telling their mothers and fathers that they should get vaccinated. The same with young people, and we must not lower our guard at this time. We must try to take safety measures, especially towards the end of the year celebrations. Case control and follow-up measures are also reinforced through the application of tests free of charge. The more people infected with the virus, the greater the chances of more variants. Hence, Bolivian brothers and sisters, the need to maximize biosecurity measures, and it is very important to be transparent with the information. But the commitment remains to the most universal formula, the prevention of infection. Containment through biosecurity measures, use of mass social distancing, ventilation of environments, frequent hand washing, and above all, vaccination, which is available for 100% of the vaccinable population in our country. Since the first case was confirmed in March 2020, the country has recorded almost 550,000 cases, of which 1,276 have died. For the past 2 weeks, the so-called fourth wave has been affecting Santa Cruz, with more than 60% of the more than 1,000 new cases reported every day. About 60% of the population over 12 years of age has received 2 doses of a vaccine.
teleSUR, Bolivia.
Uganda has confirmed its first case of the Omicron COVID-19 variant as the vaccination drive continues. The virus was detected in 7 travellers from South Africa and Nigeria who arrived at Entebbe International Airport on November 29th and are currently in isolation. Those affected were said to display only mild symptoms. The arrival of the new variant has driven some previously vaccine-hesitant Ugandans to get a jab, fearing the country could return to the scenes witnessed during the second wave of the pandemic. Around 7.6 million vaccine doses have been administered in Uganda since the rollout began in early 2021. The confirmation of Omicron cases in the country means the new variant has been found in at least 9 African nations.
Concern is not so much like it used to be when the pandemic had just arrived in our country, because there are few cases and they are not being admitted because they are saying it's not severe like the way it used to be.
I didn't vaccinate from the first start, so today I decided to come because of the new COVID. After getting to hear the news of the new variants, I decided to vaccinate so that I don't get the COVID, the new COVID.
As a Ugandan, I'm not worried as such because it is a variant of corona. We know the processes of how to stop its spread, and to avoid it, you have to follow the SOPs as we've already been told. Social distancing, wearing masks, and sanitizing and washing hands. So those are the basic things that we have to follow. And I think they go all along whatever variant it is. And fortunately, we've even been told by reports that actually its effects are not as adverse as even the Delta variant. So I don't think there's so much cause for alarm. It is something that we can handle as long as we follow all the SOPs and get vaccinated.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Ethiopia's Prime Minister against Tigrayan rebels. The government on Monday said the strategic towns of Dessie and Kombolcha had been retaken from the Tigray People's Liberation Front after fears that the capital could be taken sparked the Prime Minister to announce he would head to the battlefront last month, handing over his regular duties to his deputy. In recent days, the government has announced the recapture of several small towns, including the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Lalibela. The TPLF has dismissed the government's claims, saying the rebels were making strategic withdrawals and remained undefeated. Meanwhile, the international community continues to call for a ceasefire. Sudan's top general, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has warned against any foreign interference in the country's internal affairs. The general, who led a coup against the transitional government of the country in October, accused diplomatic missions of encouraging a revolt against the Sudanese Defense Forces in order to meddle in the nation's internal affairs, claiming that such incitement has destabilized the country, which is already in the grip of violent protests. In past rounds of demonstrations, security forces used violence, including firing live ammunition at protesters, according to activists. The general reinstated ousted interim Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok last month amid international pressure in a deal that calls for an independent technocratic cabinet under military oversight. Libya's upper house on Wednesday proposed delaying the December presidential elections by 2 months in the latest dispute over the vote intended to help end 10 years of conflict and violence. A United Nations-led political process with a plan for elections on December 24th has been undermined by bitter divisions over the legal basis for the vote and who should be allowed to run, with a string of controversial figures stepping forward. The High Council of State, which is equivalent to a Senate, suggested the presidential vote could take place in February to avoid further threatening the country's political transition. The council, based in the western city of Tripoli, has been in disagreement over electoral laws with the rival body, the House of Representatives, based in the eastern city of Tobruk, in a nation violently divided by the NATO-led intervention and assassination of leader Mohammed Gaddafi. In October, the eastern-based body said the legislative ballot had been delayed from December 24th to January, but the United Nations mission has urged leaders to stick to this month's date for both presidential and legislative ballots. After the United States confirmed its diplomatic boycott of the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics, China assured that it would take resolute countermeasures and announced Washington's use of lies and manipulation to damage the image of the Games. More details with our correspondent, Iramsi Parasa.
After months of threat, the United States confirmed that it would not send diplomats to Beijing over concerns about China's human rights record, a position immediately rejected by the Asian giant, whose government said the proposed boycott was based on lies and rumors. The Biden administration said it would not send an official United States delegation to the Beijing Winter Games. U.S. athletes will still be allowed to compete in the Games. The recent move may be joined by allied countries like the United Kingdom, Canada and Australia, who have already signaled that they too will seek ways to express displeasure with China's policies while stopping short of prohibiting athletes from attending. Washington blamed the boycott on alleged human rights violations in the Xinjiang region, as well as other human rights abuses in China, accusations that Beijing rejected and claimed are based on lies, misinformation, and are part of the U.S. strategy to stop the country's progress.
The Winter Olympics are not a stage for political shows and political manipulation. U.S. politicians continue to promote a diplomatic boycott without even being invited to the Games. This illusion and grandiloquence are aimed at political manipulation. It seriously violates the principle of political neutrality in sports established by the Olympic Charter, a flagrant political provocation and an insult to the 1.4 billion Chinese people. The U.S. is trying to disrupt the Beijing Winter Olympics. This will only expose its sinister intention and further erode its moral authority and credibility.
Caught in the middle of the China-U.S. conflict, the Beijing Winter Olympics, to be held in February next year, has for some time now ceased to be a purely sporting event and has become a political issue. Beijing strongly rejected U.S. actions and called on Washington to stop politicizing sports and stop its wars that interfere in and undermine the Beijing Winter Olympics. Despite politicization attempts and a fierce anti-China media campaign, Beijing is on track to become the only city in the world to host both the Summer and Winter Olympic Games, a proof of the Asian giant's ability to successfully organize top-level sporting events.
And China's foreign ministry noted that the United States' diplomatic boycott of the Beijing 2022 Winter Games is nothing more than a self-serving quest for political advantage.
We have said on several occasions, it is the athletes themselves who should be the focus of our attention and not the politicians who call for a boycott for selfish political advantage. In fact, no one would care whether these people come or not, and there is no impact on the Olympic Games that Beijing will successfully hold.
Australia on Wednesday joined the diplomatic boycott of the Beijing 2022 Winter Games initiated by the United States. The Prime Minister said the decision was based on alleged human rights abuses perpetrated by the Chinese state in Xinjiang province. Australia is the first country to endorse the political boycott launched by the United States on Monday, although neither nation banned athletes from the competition. For its part, China said the US is trying to disrupt the Games based on its ideological bias, lies and rumours, and noted that the move was meaningless, as no US diplomats had been invited to the event. And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.